Very good evening. You're watching India Global. I'm Gaurie, Dwivedi. This is the show that gets you all the news, the views and the perspectives of stories around the world. But first up, as always, we start with the headlines. Pakistan stands completely isolated in the world. Shehbaz Sharif's Iran visit turns to a PR disaster as Iranian Supreme Leader gives a measured response to Pakistan's Prime Minister's repeated pleas.
पाकिस्तान समझ गया कि लड़ाई में वो भारत से जीत नहीं सकते हैं और इसलिए उसने प्रॉक्सी वॉर चालू किया.
Not mincing words, Prime Minister Modi hits out at Pakistan, says India will give strong response to any proxy war, any war whatsoever that may emanate from Pakistan. Bangladesh remains on the edge as the power tussle between interim leader Yunus and army chief intensifies. Lockdowns, protests, all underway. The question is, will Yunus announce polls sooner than the December deadline? Amidst growing uncertainty for international students in America, Trump administration doubles down on visa conditions, says visas can be revoked if students skip classes, even as Trump administration also clamps down harder on Harvard University, freezes all federal grants. And India is now the world's fourth largest economy, overtakes Japan, set to grow at over 6% annually. India is even set to be the third largest economy by 2028 and is set to overtake Germany. Bangladesh seems to be on the boil, viewers. There are protests, there are demonstrations, and there are lockdowns against the interim advisor who seems to be pushing the pedal even hard on clampdowns. The latest flashpoint is Yunus's changed rules that can ensure that any civilian bureaucrat could be dismissed quickly, could be removed fast. But this is just one of the many fronts that the Yunus government is battling. The growing rift between the interim government and the army chief, the growing clamor for elections, even among political parties close to the Yunus regime, are all matters that are leading to a situation of growing instability in Bangladesh. So we ask, is Bangladesh on the boil? And the questions that I'm going to put forth to the panelists joining me on the show, the big questions that we always ask on India Global, the big questions that we are tracking right now on Bangladesh, given the fact it is on the boil. First up, has the interim government lost its legitimacy? That's the first key question that we are putting forth. Next up, as far as Bangladesh, has the army chief and the Yunus power tussle actually intensified? There's been chatter about it the last couple of days, given the fact that army played a very key role in propping up Mohammad Yunus's regime. So is that power tussle now impacting stability? Next up, will Yunus actually now hold elections sooner than the December deadline? There is clamor that's growing from all quarters, and will Yunus finally succumb to that pressure? Next up, the big questions that we are asking, has the bureaucracy now turned against Yunus? This actually now is the latest protest. The fact that the secretariat was locked down is no small matter. Has the civil bureaucracy now turned completely against Mohammad Yunus's regime? And lastly, that we are asking, that is the interim chief now essentially on borrowed time? He was interim. He was supposed to fix the country only to a point that elections can take place. Is he now overstaying his welcome? Those are some of the big questions that we are putting forth in this debate. Muqtadir Rashid and Veena Sikri joined me on the broadcast to talk more about this. Let's try and ensure that we cover as much ground as possible without trying to instigate either side. And I'm going to give the opening word to Muqtadir Rashid. You are in Dhaka. I want to understand from you, how grim is the situation in terms of the power tussle that is going on, the clampdowns, the lockdowns that one is witnessing? The secretariat being locked down is not a small matter, is it, Muqtadir?
Of course, it's not a small matter, because the Dr. Yunus-led government, which is supposed to hold minimum reform related to election, and then go for a free, fair, and credible election. Instead of doing this, uh, 84 years old man now mess up with everything, everywhere, every institution. Other than a few pro-Jamaat elements are backing him. So the government of Dr. Yunus now as franchise, or you can say it's of a proxy of Jamaat, and it's basically playing the Jamaat is whatever he's doing, it's just to show the Jamaat is playing in the back. So everything is like that. So whenever the Jamaat is playing a country, now whatever will happen, you are seeing right at this moment. And whenever I talk to the Islamic parties, they also say, "Look, we want the election to be delayed." So far, they are trying to make the interim chief convinced that it should be delayed, and they have no issue with that. And now, similar with the NCP, which is a franchise of Dr. Yunus,
Muqtadir.
they are doing
You
it
are
the same
trying.
way.
Okay, as I said, I gave you all the time. I let you speak, no interjections, because I want to cover ground. But the sense I get is that there's a certain amount of whitewashing of what is happening right now in Bangladesh is taking place here on the show as well. Veena, do you agree with that? Veena Sikri?
Well, I must admit straight away that Bangladesh is definitely on the boil. And the reason that they are on the boil is that Mohammad Yunus regime is now an illegitimate regime. It is an unelected regime. And as even it's the army which swore them in August last year as as an interim regime, not a caretaker regime, but an interim regime. But they were supposed to move towards elections. They have done nothing of the kind. And on the contrary, they have started actions like reforms, which is not part of their mandate at all. They're talking about constitutional reforms and electoral reforms and police reforms, which is certainly not part of their mandate. And at the end of so many months, we have seen that the army, they had a meeting, their own internal meeting on the 21st of May, last Wednesday, almost a week ago. And in that meeting, there was unanimity among all the army officers present in their uniforms, even those serving in different places, peacekeeping operations. They were all on the Zoom link. And they all said categorically, number one, elections must be held by December of this year. But Yunus regime is trying to avoid that because they know that their popularity is falling. Every day their popularity is falling. And everybody is saying, Aage bhalo chilo, it was earlier, better, it was better earlier. So obviously they have not been able to fulfill any of the requirements. Even the economy is in a total mess. Factories are closing down, people are losing jobs, there is a huge amount of inflation. And, they're trying to import goods from other countries, trying to be anti-Indian, absolutely in the worst category of anti-Indianism, thinking this will get them popularity with the people. But this is not working. Mohammad Yunus is not his own man. He is supported entirely by the Islamist regimes, by the Jamaat-e-Islami and others. And in fact, he is not even fulfilling the criteria of a interim government because he's allowed political parties to become his advisors.
Okay, let's get in a response from Muqtadir. I still want to come back to some of the specifics that we were talking about. The fact that there is a certain amount of power tussle between the two parallel power centers in Bangladesh, and many people are saying that it's actually now out in the open, Muqtadir. How do you think that is likely to impact the stability of the government and stability of your country?
It's absolutely mad, and the people are now in uncertainty. The very much uncertainty is rolling everywhere, from the business to education, from jobs to investment, everywhere. So, which is very uncertain. Even Dr. Yunus can simply announce the date for the election. He couldn't do that. Like Sheikh Hasina. Sheikh Hasina was very adamant, and Dr. Yunus is following her path, and which is very unfortunate because it's not the emotion.
Sheikh
It's a
Hasina was
country
in
of
power for 15 years. Mohammad Yunus hasn't been in power even for 15 months. So how is it that Mohammad Yunus is showing traits of being so dictatorial in his approach and the heavy-handedness with which, of course, he is addressing issues which frankly are not in his mandate? Muqtadir?
I mean, he's supposed to. He's supposed to understand what he should do. The people are now started revolting against him, and it's a very bad sign. And he was very respected on 8th August, but now he is not as he was in August 2024. So he should understand. And few of the people within the government, they are misguiding him. Probably they want to stay in power longer time. Although the government publicly claimed that they want to hold the election within June of 2026. So why don't they give any time for an election?
Exactly. I want to get in a word from Veena Sikri, who wants to come in. Yeah, go ahead, Veena.
Yes. I'd like to say, you spoke about a tussle between the army and Mohammad Yunus. I'd like to say that in Bangladesh today, the biggest source of stability and authority is the army. It is the army who appointed Mohammad Yunus. So it is the army which is now telling Mohammad Yunus that, please, you are not fulfilling the mandate of your government. Look at the fact that they have tried to change all the laws of the regime, and even government servants are now liable to be dismissed just without even a cause. So this is creating a lot of furor among the government servants. The Bangladesh Secretariat is closed. All the school teachers in the villages have joined in the protest. So obviously, Mohammad Yunus is not fulfilling the aspirations of any group in the country. I think the only answer today is that the army must take back the power, must appoint a caretaker government, and hold elections within the next 6 months. That is the only answer. And the election must be free, fair, and inclusive.
Fair and transparent and quick. That's the whole point.
They must. This of banning the Awami League is all wrong, because
absolutely. I mean, you can't have an election if you ban one of the parties. Actually, I'm going to leave it there. But Bangladesh is a story that we keep coming back to simply because it's so very important for several reasons. Thank you so much, Muqtadir Rashid and Veena Sikri, for taking out the time and joining me on India Global. Well, viewers, as far as the bottom line on this issue is concerned, Mohammad Yunus was supposed to be a man in hurry. Hurry to reform, hurry to build institutions, hurry to hold elections in Bangladesh. But somewhere along the way, he has lost track. And this is not going down well with the army. In fact, some of the Islamists mainstreamed and released by Yunus has upset the arrangement with the Bangladesh army, which frankly, in fact, propped up the Yunus regime to a large extent. With growing dictatorial instincts by Yunus's government, it's affecting governance. And the growing chatter about the army getting out of barracks in Bangladesh is now a very disturbing fact that India will have to watch very closely. Turning focus now to the other important story that we are tracking on the show, India-US trade talks. They've been witnessing continued progress, even if they've been incremental. There is now an expectation that before the 90-day pause on the reciprocal tariffs kick in, Washington and New Delhi will be in a position to thrash out a multi-phase trade deal. And Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri's 3-day visit to the US is likely to close some of those loose ends, besides several other aspects. Mohammad Ghazali joins me live on the broadcast to talk more on this. Ghazali, there's a lot on the table, of course, trade being one of them. What else is likely to come up in these meetings?
See, this is a very important meeting, considering the fact that this is a follow-up meeting of what Prime Minister met Mr. Trump in February when he was in office. So it's been 2-3 months to that meeting, and that is why Mr. Misri is going there, and his visit follows the all-party delegation which is visiting different countries, and they are also likely to visit Washington soon in the next 2-3 days. So how US has been engaging with Pakistan in the wake of Operation Sindoor is a big concern, because despite India raising the fact that Pakistan is sheltering those terror elements and how India is struck deep inside Pakistan, yet US continues to have business deals with Pakistan right after the Operation Sindoor was announced, or the way we conducted our operations days after that. So that's a big concern. Why? That is exactly why we are also sending all-party delegation to different countries. The second major reason or the concern would be, we have seen these anti-immigration laws being drafted by US administration, and then this wider crackdown and a kind of anxiety and confusion among Indian students who are studying that. That could be one issue which can be discussed with the top diplomats of Trump administration. The third one is that in certain departments which sort of follows foreign relations for United States, in some of the positions which deals with relations with India, those positions are still vacant, and that is certainly why the analysts believe that perhaps that is why there is a communication gap between India and United States, because they don't have a point person who deals with India, and that position is vacant. So these are certain issues which will be raised by Mr. Misri, the Foreign Secretary, when he visits United States. He will be arriving late tonight, and after that a series of meetings are lined up with the top officials of US administration.
All right, we leave it there, and we're going to keep coming back with the details of that very important visit. Thanks much. Mohammad Ghazali joins us live there. All right, on that note, we slip into a very short break. We come back on the other side, talk more about Trump's Harvard clampdown. It continues and the impact it will have on international students. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are now tracking what is turning out to be one of the biggest international stories, Trump versus, well, international students. US has issued a fresh warning for foreign students in the country that are on a student visa. As per the latest announcements that's been made by the US Embassy in India, foreign students have to ensure that they do not drop classes, drop out courses, or even skip their classes. And if at all it happens, they may risk losing their visas. This is a latest set of warning that has come in, that is following a series of deportations, crackdowns, all of it aimed at ensuring that foreign students are pretty much now being termed and put along with undocumented immigrants. That's what is happening, unfortunately, in America. Also, the fact that there's growing uncertainty in terms of whether or not their visa status remains valid. Now, add to this fresh level of uncertainty that's come in is the crackdown and measures that have been undertaken against Harvard. There are 788 students from India who are in Harvard, and the latest measures that are being taken by the Trump administration against Harvard further intensifies the crackdown. The latest measures that have been taken is that Trump has cut Harvard's $100 million federal contracts. Federal agencies have been ordered to drop Harvard in terms of any possible orders that they may have, and separate set of vendor identification will take place, which will not include Harvard University. That's the extent now to which this crackdown has gone, and I can stick my neck out and say this isn't the last. This has still begun, because that legal fight that Harvard has picked up is yet to really see the light of day. The question that we are going to now ask, and in fact, let me get in Sudhanshu, who's joining me live on this, Sudhanshu Kaushik, who represents North American students of Indian origin there. Sudhanshu, the fact is, you may be in a vehicle, you may be heading somewhere, but it looks like a lot of students are stuck right now with no prospects of actually reaching anywhere. That's what it's increasingly looking like. Visa uncertainty, add to it the Harvard crackdown. Are Indian students stuck right now in a place between with limited or zero prospects of having clarity anytime soon?
Absolutely. It puts you in a place of such uncertainty. Imagine taking so many loans. Imagine taking off a year of your life into putting into applications, having all these dreams and ambitions. And then all of a sudden you're said, oh, listen, if you come here, you're not going to be accepted. You might, have racial attacks against you. And by the way, the government is not supporting you by any means, even though you're giving them full rate tuition, 4 times the amount of tuition that a domestic student pays. And yet, even if you miss this class, apparently, your visa will be revoked for the smallest reasons whatsoever. You're instilling such a level of fear that just does not make sense. Why would the sitting US administration really create fear in a $50 billion US economy?
Absolutely. And in fact, some of the statistics that we have indicate that Indian students alone contribute about $7 to $8 billion to the entire American university ecosystem. That's a large number. You have 3 lakh students, all facing varying degrees of uncertainty because, well, even though they are legal immigrants with all paperwork in place, they're suddenly being treated like illegal immigrants in their in America.
That number you said, the 7 to 8 billion, I would take out and say that, that's a conservative estimate. That's taking into consideration the US tuition that they pay for colleges, that's taking into remittance, etc. But what about the local economy that they're also contributing to? There's no way to actually see how much they're spending and how much they're actually taking in. So I would actually say it's about 10 to 15 billion easily that international Indian students contribute. And absolutely, you're contributing so much and then you're getting a slap on your wrist and saying, hey, miss a class for any reason whatsoever, whether it's you're sick or whether it's a job interview, whether it's anything else that could be personal, you might be at the risk of losing your visa. And this comes on top of the job market still being so fluctuating because of the policies in place. Listen, I'm saying this again. I just don't see how this is a better deal. The higher education market in the United States was a win-win for the United States. You get tuition money, you get talent, and you get prospect. Why are they trying to disrupt this? Why are they trying to ruin this? And why are they trying to create such a fear among students who have broken no laws, right? Who are there to study, who are there to contribute, they're working on their STEM OPT, and they go on with their day.
Exactly. There has been a year-on-year decline in terms of the number of students who are going to America from India. There's been a decline, 15, 18, 20%, that's been the decline. This kind of a crackdown, this kind of a mood of uncertainty, some would even say fear, because you're talking about 18, 19, 20-year-olds having no idea what their future looks like. This means that next year, maybe for fall or for spring next year, how many students are actually going to evaluate American universities as a career option? What's the kind of dent we are talking here?
Look, it's really interesting because we've been speaking to a lot of Indian students, prospective and also the ones that are going here who have the option to transfer out, whether it's a different country or a different university. The fascination of the US and the higher education in the US still exists. I'm not going to say that there's going to be a drastic drop. I'm actually going to say that, there will be a decrease, 10, 15, 20% greater than what it has been before because of the fear. But I still think that Indian students have this fascination and appeal to US higher education, and they're still going to do it. The thing is that there is so much an abundance of supply and a limited kind of supply and an abundance of demand, where Indian students are willing to pay the price and they're going to go there. Now, is it the best decision for those Indian students? I can't say.
Absolutely,
right?
I can't say either, but I want to ask you one thing before I let you go, which is that if there was one piece of advice that you would give to students right now in American universities who've gone from India, what would that advice be?
I would say be very careful in the universities you pick, be very careful in the career choices you're making, and be very careful of how you engage with your university and how you engage with society in general. I think for the first time in my lifetime, a student has to be careful of what they do, what they say, outside of just following the law. They have to be careful of their freedom of speech is up at risk. Their freedom to practice religions in one case is also at risk, but their freedom to just study as a student and that academic freedom that we've been promised is at risk. So I would caution them to be careful, to be really, really sincere in what they're trying to get out of their U.S. higher education system. And if at the end of the day they've taken loans, if at the end of the day they're in debt, I would just ask them to evaluate their priorities and focus on getting a job or getting your degree and getting out there.
Indeed, many of those students, most of them would have taken loans with their visas, their jobs, their degrees, all those prospects being under great uncertainty. Sudhanshu Kaushik, thanks much for speaking to me, Executive Director of North American Association of Indian Students, joining us live from Chicago. All right, shifting focus now to another very important and a historic milestone actually. A Nepalese Sherpa has set a new world record for the most ascents of Mount Everest. A 55-year-old Kami Rita reached the summit for he's reached it for the 31st time, if I'm not mistaken. That is the kind of number of times he's actually gone, guiding a 22-member Indian Army team via the traditional southeast ridge. He began his Everest journey in 1994 and has missed only 3 seasons since then. Known for his extraordinary stamina and commitment, Kami Rita works with 7 summit treks. Nepal, home to 8 of the world's highest peaks, depends heavily on mountaineering tourism, and this season alone 468 permits have been issued, while over 300 climbers have reached the top. So far, officials have confirmed at least 2 deaths on the mountain this month, but well, we are celebrating Kami Rita's great ascent and great record. All right, on that note, we slip into a break. Coming up on the other side, Pakistan Prime Minister in Iran. Well, he's been isolated, and what was started to be a PR trip has turned out to be a disaster. We come back and talk more on that. Stay with us. Pakistan is a failed state. Its Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's PR overdrive has flopped, and its army general is caught lying, presenting all mementos. In the midst of all this, Sharif tries to throw an olive branch. He says that talks can happen. But many false starts have plagued the India-Pakistan relationship, viewers. But New Delhi now is wiser and much clearer in its thought that terror and talks do not go together. And as its message to Pakistan is clear, so is the message to the global community. And as India went about its diplomatic offensive to about 30-odd countries, telling exactly what Operation Sindoor was about and why it had to happen after Pahalgam terror attack, Pakistan also tried to do its own set of PR machinery globally, except that it backfired. It flopped actually, because Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei did not at any point of time respond to Pakistan's overtures. In fact, his measured response essentially told how Pakistan's lies was completely busted. And today we are going to discuss just that as India decides its next moves, Pakistan stands completely isolated with no friends, not even from the Muslim world where it was hopeful that it will be able to draw on some of its old relationships. The big questions that we are asking as Pakistan stands isolated. First up, has Pakistan been completely isolated in the global community? It has no friends, except if you count Azerbaijan and China. Second, why is Pakistan making a desperate plea to hold talks with India? Next, will India's plans to blacklist Pakistan at the FATF further choke its finances? And this is the reason why Shehbaz Sharif wants to start some sort of this olive branch he's extending. And has Pakistan's global outreach completely flopped? Means that it has run out of options, run out of time, and it has no option but to try and extend that olive branch. I'm going to get in some of the guests joining me on this story. Tara Kartha joins me live along with General Maston and Professor Swaran Singh to talk more about this. Tara, let me start with you. The PR disaster that Shehbaz Sharif's visit turned out to be. He was hoping that he's going to get some sort of positive messaging for Pakistan, but didn't happen. It backfired and essentially told just how isolated Pakistan is on the global stage.
I think it takes a lot of optimism to go to Iran and expect a warm welcome. I mean, considering that you were at blows with that country just recently, that they had aircraft bombing each other, that you've got the Jaish-ul-Adl sitting in your territory and hitting Iranians. I mean, in which world are these people living? You know, it's really staggering. The Iranians have been trying to tell these guys to back off. They've tried any number of times to get them to cooperate. None of it is happening. So I mean, the whole thing seems a little surreal. I don't know how this is happening even.
They were being advised by their Chinese and Azerbaijan friends. That's why. I think that's how it came to this. General Maston, let me ask you this, that as things stand right now, probably in the last 48 hours, probably the nadir even by Pakistani standards was Asim Munir's memento. The old memento that he presented for a flop show, militarily and even diplomatically, essentially tells what Pakistan's story is all about, that it has no friends, no options, back to its wall, and which is why it's resorting to these tricks.
Yeah, very true. See, Pakistan is trying to resort to all possible options, and obviously, you know, the memento which has been presented. Firstly, I think now the research has been done by some Indian people, and it is 2019. I think some Chinese had put this painting or something of that sort. So that is also, you know, come out as totally fake. Now the issue is, what is Pakistan trying? It's truly isolated, as brought out by you and Dr. Tara also. But they are now finally realized that they are, you know, cornered. And once cornered, now they are trying to give an olive branch to India. And the first wording is, we will talk on Kashmir. No way. Prime Minister of India is very clear. We will only talk on POKJ. India is not going to talk on Kashmir. Why should we talk on Kashmir? In fact, India should now we should give our terms of reference. Our terms of reference are very clear, stated by the Prime Minister. Terror and talks, no way. Terror and trade, no way. They don't go together, and blood and water don't go together. So we are very clear in our terms of reference, and I feel we need to give them some more terms of reference. We need to revive the issue of the Durand Line, which is, and the independence of the Baluchis. So India today must give a lot of strong terms of reference and bring them to their knees. This is just a PR exercise trying to show to the world that they are ready for a dialogue with India. No way. Why should he even talk about Kashmir? Kashmir is no issue. And I have also gone into a lot of historical data, some books written by Pashtuns, a book, Facts of Facts. It clearly states, the documents from the 30 years of documents have been put by the United Kingdom in the India Oval Office Library. Over there, this person has done research, Khan Abdul Wali Khan. It clearly states that, all the princely rulers were given the option of acceding to India or acceding to Pakistan. The people were not to take that choice, and therefore our ruler in Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh, decided so, and therefore on what basis Pakistan is contesting that? So I think a lot of literature is found in the Pashtun literature, which luckily I have that book.
Okay.
So this is a PR exercise.
Yeah, the internal instability in Pakistan is another cause of great concern and should be for the civilian government as well. And Professor Swaran Singh, let me come to you then. There are two things that have happened. There is the Indian diplomatic outreach, where we've reached out to countries that matter. We've told why Operation Sindoor had to happen, what preceded it, and why Pakistan didn't take any action and India had to respond, and counter that with what Pakistan's outreach has been all about. They did it because India did it. That's what their logic was. Except that it backfired completely, didn't it?
Thank you, Gaurie. In fact, within hours of India announcing on last Saturday that India would be sending 7 multi-party delegations of 59 members of parliament to 32 countries, Pakistan desperately responded by saying the former Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari will lead an 8-member delegation to 5 countries, US, UK, France, Russia and Belgium, which has not taken off as of now. And then, of course, we saw Prime Minister along with his Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar and, of course, Information Broadcasting Minister Tarar going to these 4 friendly countries where you just mentioned the response in Iran, where, of course, General Munir was also there to make it very high-powered delegation, is really mute, to put it politely. But that was only expected. Let me quickly, in 30 seconds, tell your viewers, India is 7 times population, 11 times GDP, 8 times defense budget, 2-to-1 ratio of weapons, military is 2.5 times larger, paramilitary is 5 times larger, and India's foreign exchange 45 times larger. And of course, the crisis in Pakistan's economy and society. So I think one can only anticipate that, it's a desperate effort of Pakistan to go to few friendly countries, including his visit to Dushanbe to attend what is called International Conference on Glaciers. Now, he's not going to get any positive response because India's stature today is very different, which is visible the way Operation Sindoor was conducted and the follow-up whole narrative is being explained to the world. I keep saying after 9/11 in 2001, United States had created a virtual consensus around the world on global war on terrorism.
Yes.
This is India's moment now.
Indeed. So it has 3 friends, Turkey, Azerbaijan and China. But the reason why all these are friends is because Pakistan is buying Turkish drones. Pakistan is allowing its territory to be used by China for CPEC. And the day that equation changes, then this support will also vanish. That's exactly what it is, nothing more than that. Tarak Artha, I want to understand from you then, as far as how the narrative has been shaped now, the fact that Pakistan stands completely isolated, the fact that Prime Minister Modi sent out the strongest possible message that you now make any mistake, any misadventure whatsoever, we are going to respond in the strongest possible manner. I think that's a very clear message to any olive branch that Shehbaz Sharif was trying to hope that India would probably get.
Absolutely. I mean, how difficult is it? I mean, you just have to grab a bunch of terrorists. There are plenty of them around. So you can grab a bunch of them and shove them into jail. And yeah, that's a beginning. You want to talk, do something on terrorism. I mean, here is Pakistan repeating God knows how many times, we are the biggest victims of terrorism. Then do something about it, right? And number two, I'm saying, let's talk about Kashmir. How in 1949 did you divide POK into northern areas and Azad, so-called Azad Kashmir? On what legal basis did you do that? It was never part of your country. You didn't ask the people. It's still not part of your country. They don't hold Pakistani passports. Who exactly are the people of POK? So that's, I think we need this, the issue of POK, I think has never been adequately addressed, because try doing a Google search, you will get absolutely nothing. Whereas Kashmir is all over. You talk to a taxi driver in New York, he'll tell you about Kashmir. Does anybody know anything about POK? So I think it's time we push that line. However, I just want to say one thing. If we have a dialogue, I would love to have a dialogue with the people of Pakistan on climate change, on the issues which are facing us every day. If Mumbai is underwater, so is Pakistan's Punjab. But will the Pakistan army allow it? They won't. So there are very, very strong issues the two countries could address, which deals with our everyday life. But they won't, they will never allow it. So when Field Marshal Munir is going around with the Prime Minister, whereas our delegation is a multi-party, multi-religious group, I mean, just look at the difference.
There is a sea difference, and there's another thing, General Meston, that I want to ask you, which is that Pakistan is also now set to see a major turn, because Asim Munir, who is going to be the first Field Marshal in 60 years, would also like to now put his stamp on Pakistan. He's going to try and create another garrison state, maybe bigger than Ayub Khan, bigger than Zia-ul Haq, bigger than Yahya Khan, right? So in the backdrop of that, the internal turmoil and instability of Pakistan is only going to intensify, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right. Munir definitely is going to try to, further establish his hold. But the fact of the matter is, yesterday, Prime Minister Modi's speech was very clear. He has addressed to the people of Pakistan, the youth of Pakistan. And therefore, that has got a lot of meaning. And you also just stated, the internal turmoil is there. Pakistan today is in such a crisis, it cannot handle Balochistan, it cannot handle Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, it cannot handle POKJ, it cannot handle Sindh. So it is totally into, confusion. It's really no writ is running off anywhere in that country. So Munir also, I feel his days could be numbered, and let's not be surprised. We are giving too much leeway to Munir. Something can happen within the armed forces also. Pakistan is that nation. Anything is possible. Each day you will keep hearing some funny news in Pakistan. Did you ever imagine this Bhutto's daughter was, I think, rounded up in Sindh. The Home Minister's residence was burned in Sindh. The Corps Commander's office, house was burnt in about 1.5 years back. Their military bases were targeted by the youth. So what does it show? The internal turmoil and the hatred towards the Pakistan armed forces is on the rise. And let's not be surprised. I think the Prime Minister's statement will resonate in the youth of Pakistan. And when I was in Afghanistan, I recollect the people used to tell me that, including some Pakistanis and Afghans who had studied there, that the young generation of Pakistan regrets partition. So this is the feeling, and they are drawing a large comparison. India is rising. We are now the 4th largest global economy in the world.
Indeed.
We are $4 trillion worth, and they are the country who's just taking IMF loan. India has not taken any loans since '93.
I want to then ask, absolutely, we give loans, we give the kind of assistance that our friends, countries, neighbors need. That's the financial behemoth that India is now. But Professor Swarn Singh, I want to understand from you that next step for India from a diplomatic point of view, we've sent out our message to key countries that matter. And we are now going to also focus on the next FATF meeting that will take place, because we want to choke those financial lines that our defense minister says lead back to the terror infrastructure in Pakistan, doesn't it? So how do we go about choking those financial helplines that come to Pakistan from these multilateral agencies like IMF and World Bank?
Gaurie, if you see the conversations that Indian members of parliament are today having around the world, it does include Financial Action Task Force to take stock of what is happening in Pakistan, and the way the assistance provided by International Monetary Fund is enabling Pakistan to not just provide sanctuaries but support to various terrorist organizations, Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, and more recently, of course, the Resistance Force. And these are not terrorists or organizations that only India keeps talking about. The whole world, United Nations, United States have designated many of these, and these are known to have bases there. The biggest example, of course, remains of bin Laden in Abbottabad. So it's not a very difficult exercise given India's stature and the reality in Pakistan that India should build a global consensus. I keep reminding that in 2001, United States had built a global consensus. Take it to the United Nations, where India from 94 has been trying to create an international counter-terrorism agreement at the global level. India can have this as an opportunity to lead, not just in stopping Pakistan from doing nuisance to India, but contribute to global engagement of how to deal with this menace of terrorism. And I think that is where India can really find a very specific stamp of its own in international politics.
Absolutely. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of India Global. We're going to keep revisiting the story simply because what happens to Pakistan, how we deal with it, impacts us as well. In fact, bottom line, viewers, is that Pakistan is beginning to feel the pinch from India's actions. The abeyance of the Indus Water Treaty, the fact that India is clear that it will make a case for blacklisting of the country at the next meeting of the FATF, the financial watchdog, that will choke Pakistan's finances, are the reasons why Shehbaz Sharif is scrambling and wants those talks. But Prime Minister Modi's message should be a reminder of where New Delhi stands now. India will talk, but only on terror. India will talk, but only on the Jammu Kashmir, part of Jammu Kashmir that Pakistan has occupied. Till then, Shehbaz Sharif can keep making a mockery of himself by keep taking gifts that are 6 years old from wars that he has lost. As far as India is concerned, it continues to grow up. It is now the 4th largest economy, will become the 3rd largest in the next 4 years. Well, viewers, on that note, coming up on the other side is former High Commissioner of India to Pakistan, Ajay Bisara, on Spot On with Gaurie Dwivedi, a slice of that conversation. Stay with us. As India's envoy during one of the tensest chapters in Indo-Pak ties, Ajay Bisara didn't just hold the fort, he weathered the storm. And today, Mr. Bisara lifts the curtain on what really goes behind the high walls of diplomacy. Welcome to Spot On, Ambassador Bisara.
Thank you, Gaurie. Great to be on your show.
What about the equation between Shehbaz Sharif, Asim Munir? They both, of course, want to keep out Imran Khan. Does this cement their equation further, and does this mean that Imran Khan is unlikely to come back to power? Of course, never say never in politics, more so in Pakistani politics, but how do you read this in the context of Imran Khan?
Well, you know, civil-military relations are always complex in Pakistan, but now there's a great deal of simplicity. This is clearly not just a hybrid regime, but a military regime with a civilian facade. Because what happens after the former General Bajwa goes is that General Asim Munir comes in, and on his watch he has a fake and fabricated election where the people of the country vote overwhelmingly, perhaps even would have been a 3/4 majority for Imran Khan.
Yeah.
But they manipulate the election, they rig it so that, and get in the Sharif brothers. So Sharif brothers are beholden to Asim Munir for what he has done for them. But now, I think he's asked them to bend, but they're choosing to crawl.
There was a specific case where, my team in fact told me this, that at a wedding you had faced intense surveillance in Islamabad, and they were telling me that, this was an instance that we must ask Ambassador Bisara to talk about, because this gives an insight into how the life is for India's High Commissioner in Pakistan, isn't it? What happened at that particular instance?
So there are multiple such instances. I went, for instance, to visit Panja Sahib. Our groups of Sikh delegates used to come.
Yeah.
And I also went to Nankana Sahib and the holy Sikh shrines. And Panja Sahib, the ISI came and blocked my car and suddenly said that you can't go in. And I said, why? I have got all the permissions. And then they said, look, some of the people inside are agitated. They don't want the Indian High Commissioner to be there. So somewhere in their system, somebody realized that they ought to play a game with this. So what really happens is, even in social occasions, going for a wedding, you're not sure if somebody will block your way or somebody will put a camera on 2 inches from your face and start to film you.
Yeah.
So it is some kind of harassment that does take place. And, we try to wear a very thick skin when we work in Pakistan and ignore all this stuff, because at the people's level there is goodwill, and the people themselves feel embarrassed by, they say, these
outward
thugs.
hostility.
Yes, these thugs, these gundas from the ISI who come and try to play games there.